Hello, my name is Skala and this is my research presentation. Introduction. My credentials are that I am a grad student at Morningside University and a fifth-year teacher at Prairie Creek Intermediate. Prairie Creek Intermediate is a 5th and 6th grade building located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Research study. The topic of my research was the use of one-to-one technology and the impact on grade 6 through 12 student achievement. My problem statement. Only 35% of United States 8th graders were identified as proficient in math in the 2011 school year, determined by the National Assessment for Educational Progress, and the United States was ranked 32nd in math among nations. Factors that play a role in this issue. While I was conducting my research and blowing up the problem, I noticed and found that there were some factors that played an overall role in math achievement. Factors such as gender, race, socioeconomic status, and math anxiety. Why me? Why I chose this topic? I chose this topic because I am currently a 6th grade science teacher and I am looking to transition into a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade math position. And I really wanted to look at how I can utilize technology in my classroom to help close those achievement gaps and increase students' overall achievement in math. Past interventions. Math Lab. Math Lab is set up for students who are identified as Tier 2. It would be an additional class that they would go to on top of their general education math class. And with this, when we compared Tier 1 students using ANOVA assessment for items correct, Tier 1 students' standard deviation was 9.883, whereas Tier 2 students who were placed in the Math Lab intervention standard deviation was only 6.73. Saxon Math. Saxon Math is a small group intervention strategy where students will be working in a smaller group setting. The teacher uses the I do, we do, you do method of instruction. 5 studies that were conducted with 9,759 students show that the overall effect size of using Saxon Math intervention was only 0.2, and the improvement index was only up 8 points on that standard assessment. Peer-assisted learning, otherwise known as peer-assisted tutoring. For peer-assisted tutoring, you have students who might be Tier 1 or proficient working with struggling students who may be identified as Tier 2. With the peer-assisted learning and tutoring that I found through my research was really focused on high school students and regarding the SAT. So data only showed small improvements on achievement items related to the SAT material, whereas it showed negative impacts on items that were not related to the SAT. Literature review. Impact of this issue. Students who are not able to achieve grade level proficiency in math are more likely to struggle in math curriculum later on in their education. And I like to think of math curriculum as building blocks or building a pyramid. Each time you go up, that instructional piece is going to get harder and harder and harder. And if you're missing a foundational piece, you can't go up to the next level. You can't build on top of nothing. Second piece was dropout. In the year of 2016, of students ages 15 to 24, roughly 532,000 students dropped out of school, which is 4.8% of all students. And the reason, one of the impacts that math plays on it, is students who are not proficient in the main 3 core subjects such as science, math, and literacy have a higher risk of dropping out than those students who are proficient. In the long-term impact, students who drop out of high school are more likely to be unemployed. My proposed intervention is the inclusion of technology into the math classroom. 83% of students ages 12 to 17 are using a form of technology that connects them to the internet. To not include the use of technology in the math classroom can hinder students' academic performance and is an overall disservice to our students. The use of technology allows students to personalize their learning and adds choices, which creates a positive impact on math achievement. The implementation of technology allows teachers to tailor work for individual students and personalize their learning experience at each student's academic level. Theoretical framework. Motivation and student achievement. My theoretical approach when I was looking at this was looking at the media approach that brought me down into one of the subcategories of the use of technology, media, and motivation. A study conducted showed a statistical connection between technology and student motivation. and I wanted to focus on specifically intrinsic motivation. So the inclusion of technology can enhance the classroom environment and support students' intrinsic motivation. And a student's intrinsic motivation is having them do an activity or performing a task that they are passionate about and that they are doing on their own self-motivation, own free will, and not for an outside factor like some sort of reward. Purpose statement. The purpose of this study is to investigate the impact that one-to-one technology has on students' grades 6 through 12 and their math achievement. There have been a large number of studies conducted on the impact that technology has in the classroom, but there are not many addressing how technology affects students' intrinsic motivation with math. The impact of this study will be useful for adding to the limited information regarding the connection between technology and mathematics and increasing student achievement. This research will aid me in the years to come as I strive to transition from a science teacher to a math teacher. From what I have currently observed within my building, our math department rarely utilizes technology and is infrequent and is not always meaningful in the use of it. My hypothesis for this literature review is that the use of technology would help to close the achievement gaps in mathematics. The methods I used. Case studies chosen. When going through, I use specific demographics for my case study. I only use samples and studies that were taken inside of the United States. I limited it to only grades 6 through 12. Also, to make sure the information was the most current, the publication dates couldn't be older than 10 years. And looking at the way I was excluding some was the data they analyzed. A lot of them talked about the one-to-one use of technology, but they weren't specific about what type of technology they were using. Research methods. Most of the databases that I used came from the Hickman-Johnson Furrow Library through the Morningside University and was accessed digitally. The databases used from the HJF library were Eric EBSCO, Psychology Gale 1 file, and Psychology Collection, PsycInfo, and PsycArticles. The Rod Library was also used to collect information from databases such as Educational Full Text, L. Silver, and ERIC, which is the Institution of Education Service. The Rod Library is the University of Northern Iowa's library, and that was also accessed digitally. Key search terms. One-to-one technology, math achievement, impact of technology, student dropout rate and math achievement, student graduation rates and math achievement. Mainly all of mine were focused around looking at math achievement, long-term or short-term impacts of technology and math. And then when I was blowing up the issue, things like socioeconomics and math achievement, socioeconomics technology, things along those lines. Organization of information. When I first started collecting and organizing my information, I had used an annotated bibliography. The annotated bibliography was organized into 3 main categories. The first category was a brief synapse of each article, and this was just a small summary of what the article was focused on. The second category of the annotated bibliography was the article themes, which was all the large number of themes in the article. And the final category was the collection of themes. In this section, all the themes that were related to the author's papers are listed, and the annotated bibliography was not the only method that I used to collect my research and organize it. In my annotated bibliography, I also hyperlinked in all of the sources so that way I could go back and recall them. Hard copies. Throughout my research, through the midway point, I switched from the annotated bibliography to hard copies because the links would no longer let me in without going through logging in every single time. So I found it just easier to print off hard copies and have a bunch of folders and label them based off topics. They are based off category and topics. Some examples of them were when I was blowing up the issue, looking at SES, looking at gender gaps, looking at math anxiety, looking at how, if they get behind in math, how that can really be discouraging in the future years, things along that line. In my folders, I had highlighted key sections, finding or data that I wanted to make sure I could easily access and find when I wanted to come back to them. Results. Through the research conducted for the study, the hypothesis was confirmed that technology does increase student achievement in math, and the use of technology in the math classroom has statistical data that demonstrates When used in a meaningful way, it helps to close the achievement gap. This is a table of my source description. I just have the table of the journal articles I got. I had 35, and that it was 90% of my sources. Reports, I had 3, which was 8%, and I used one website, which was 1%, bringing my total to 39. While going through, it was really important for me to keep all of my themes very well organized so I wouldn't misplace one or lose it along the way. So these were all organized into folders. Theme of student dropout rate, I had 3 sources, which was 8%, math anxiety 4, which was 10%, socioeconomic, I had 5 articles, which was 13%, race, which was 4 articles, 10%, long-term impact, 3 articles, 8%, theoretical framework, 6 articles, 15%, past interventions was 4 articles, which is 10%, and gender gap was 4 articles, 10%, and I had some other articles that I found that were useful that I wanted to hang on to and save, and so 6 of those, and they were 15%, my total number being 39. Technology and the impact on student achievement. So this table is technology and the impact on achievement. My columns on the far left are the sources, so if you want to go to my references and look through them, these will line up with them, and I have the number of participants and the percentage increase and decrease and the standard deviation. As you can see, some of them are rather low, like our 0.05, which is not very good trend, where others are 0.11 and 0.13. Connection to past research and theory. With the amount of research available, there is evidence that the use of technology and math helps to increase student achievement. The past intervention were not as effective in closing achievement gaps with struggling students as the use of technology was. Theoretical framework. The use of technology allows students choices in their learning as well to personalize it to their specific academic levels, which helps to increase motivation. Huey proposed that by having students work on academically appropriate work, students are more engaged in that work, and this helps increase their intrinsic motivation. It was also found in a study that the inclusion of technology can enhance the classroom environment and support intrinsic motivation. Implications. Implication for students. The main implication from this study for students was the possibility of increasing technology use within the math classroom setting and outside of the classroom. The largest implication was the number of students who were able to close their achievement gap. This helps students who are below grade level proficiency to close the achievement gap more efficiently than past interventions. For teachers, the implications is to make sure that they are integrating technology in their classroom in a meaningful method, and knowing that when they are integrating that technology, it is going to help close those achievement gaps for students and help to increase intrinsic motivation and engagement within their classroom. For parents, there were some negative impacts of the use of technology, such as anxiety, isolation, depression, poor posture, eye strain. Positive, the use of technology is a life skill. The use of technology helps to personalize their learning, and it can help to close those achievement gaps. Limitations. Access to information. Only being able to utilize 2 university libraries was a struggle because I know there was a lot more information that was out there that I was unable to access. Time constraint. The limited amount of time to complete the research and really go in and find all the data that I really wanted to find was a limitation for me. More time could have led to more data. More data means more information. Subcategories. While going through, I had subcategories looking at the achievement gap with students from like low SCS, gender differences, race, math anxiety. It would be very nice to find some sort of article research study that would look at those subcategories and see what we can do and see if technology is impactful in closing those achievement gaps. Demographics. One way to do was using studies outside the United States, or using studies that are outside of the United States. Recommended for future research. Access to information. Using different search platforms, reaching out to authors when denied access to articles, collaborating with a small team for research. Time constraint. Expand the amount of time for researching to enable discovery of more quality studies. Subcategories. going